I get my chat going. Okay, hello everybody. So let's go ahead and just share up my screen and we'll just get this done very simple, very, very simple. Um, so it was really just this easy. Let's go ahead and so here's a sneak preview, although you probably already did it yourself. So really just two things that are needed for this to get going. Let me also minimize this. Okay, so we're filling out the front end, right? Let's go ahead and run this. There we go. Now we should be able to refresh here. So we've got our jobs list, right? I'm already logged in and everything, just because I didn't want to have to go through the rigmarole of registering and logging in. So I've just got a basic user that I already registered and logged in with here. We can see that I'm interviewing for a job at Google. Let's go ahead and try and add a job. Company, Code the Dream. Position, mentor. Status, decline. There we go. So we've got adding, we've got updating, mentor. I'm now the CEO of Code the Dream, and they declined me from. Actually, I'm interviewing. Let's say I'm interviewing right now for that. So that's now in the interview process. We have this little job entry, and we now need to remove these, right? So that logic was not given for us. But there's two simple places. They say to just follow along with the logic that was already given to us. And that's done pretty much entirely here in the jobs section. So first place is here in handle jobs, right? We've got this big event listener that's handling all of our clicks. And it's just, we've got training else ifs just to see if we, just to see what the e.target is selecting, where you're using what's called utility classes. Just classes that provide some sort of utility for us. It's not, and the name of it is descriptive of what it's supposed to do. That's more, I guess, a term in like CSS frameworks and stuff. But the point is that right, we've got these buttons that have these classes like edit button. I already added the code here since it's not that much. But right, this was already here for us, this edit button. And so we just needed to make another one for the delete button. So I went ahead and made that here. Else if e.target.class_list, if that contains the delete button class, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. Instead of running the function show add edit, right, which they gave for us, it's I think it's up here. Oh, it's a different function. It's in this add edit file, right? And we just run that function on the ID of the e.target, and we do that the same here, except we do delete job. Now, probably to follow with best practices, you would want to make a new file for deleting, but I just went ahead and made it at the bottom of this file because it would be a little bit easier, right? We don't have to make an entirely new file. So I'm just going to write this up really, really quick. It's super simple, right? It's just, it's really similar logic, but we're deleting stuff instead, right? So it's going to be an async function. We're going to call it delete job. It's going to need the job ID, of course, because we're deleting a job. So we need a try catch block. So we're going to enable input. That's going to be false. And it's the same thing that we're doing it here, right? This enable input here, right? We're not enabling the input, and then at the end we are enabling input. So enable input false. And then after that, we want to let's see, we need a response, right? So const response is going to be equal to, we're going to await a fetch of our jobs API, right? So that is going to be /API/v1/jobs. I've seen all this before at that jobs ID, job ID, which will feed into there. And I'm realizing there's a space here. Okay, so, and then of course we need to provide some extra options to let them know that our method we're using is going to be the delete method. Did I spell that right? No, I did not. Delt. There we go, delete. And this is this exact same as it's done up here. We're going to go through all of this also, right? I'm going to go through everything since you probably just like copied and pasted it. It's a lot to process. So I'm just going to do this real quick, and then we're going to like run through all this stuff. So just bear with me for now. If you're like, what even is all this? But yeah, we're just declaring that the method is going to be delete. And we need to provide our headers, namely our bearer token for authorization purposes. So auth authorization, and it's going to be our bearer token, right? Always start with the word bearer, and then just token. Cool. Very nice. So now that we have that, I'm just going to write this catch block just so it doesn't stop yelling at me. There we go. Okay, but we're not done here. So if, and this is just similar checks as done in the above functions. This is just following with the standard practice that's been set here. So if the res.status is equal to 200, that's a success. We set our message.text content to the job entry was deleted, right? And that's setting this part here, right? Sorry for the quick swap, but right, just this little bit here to let us know, give us some feedback to let us know that we were successful. So that's that. And then we await the show jobs function, which is defined above. If we don't get the 200 response, let's take our data and we'll await a response.json where we catch just like nothing. We're just going to catch an empty object like this. And then we're going to just let them know this is probably not going to occur because there's pretty much no way for us to do this incorrectly given the structure. So it's either going to be the message that comes along with our data, or it's just going to say delete failed. Right? Just making sure that we cover all of our bases here. But in the case that we get an actual error, we're going to console.error.error, of course, and then set the message.text content to be a communication error occurred. And then this part might not really be necessary, and I don't think they use it here. Actually, let's maybe let's not get too complicated with it. Let's just enable input. Set enable input to true. Okay, there we go. So now this should allow us to delete things. So now I actually got rejected from Code the Dream, and I don't want to. I want to hide my shame. I don't want to edit it to be declined. I just want to delete it altogether. There we go. It's deleted. Job entry was deleted. There we go. All right. So that was, I mean, that was the homework, right? Was there any part that people especially struggled with? The homework itself could have been a little bit more descriptive. I felt when I was looking at it, it would say, oh, because you're right, it gave us the base files and just the code to start with, and then it would say, hey, update this file with this code. It could have been a little bit more clear, in my personal opinion. Hey, you need to update this function, or you need to add this in this location. So that threw me off, and I accidentally removed things that should have been there, or I accidentally put it in the wrong location. So someone else may have had that issue as well, or maybe not. Maybe everyone's just way smarter than I am. I'm not quite sure. But did anyone have any issues like that with any part of the homework that they wanted to go over before I just give a general overview of what occurred in the setting up of the front end? Anybody? Buddy, a good minute to think about it. Drink some, just stay extra hydrated. I was out of town over the weekend, and I got a little sick, so I'm just drinking as much water as I can. I feel fine though right now, just a little congested. Ugh. Alrighty. Okay, well then let's just go through everything, all right? Because there was a good amount of stuff that happened, right? So we got a couple different files, and we can just sort of go over what's happening and on broad strokes. I don't want to go into each individual thing because that's going to probably take way too long. But this is a general idea of what's happening here, right? So we've always got our index.js, right? This is pretty much like the repository of everything, and it all comes together here. So this is where we're storing basically the central state of our app, right? All the different things are being stored here. All the information is being stored here and flowing down. So we've got a couple things. We're actually, I love this actually. I'm quite a big fan of this if you can find a actual appropriate use for it. But we're using the local storage API. So local storage is a really fun API. It's like this comes built in. We can actually observe it here. Let's see. Where's localhost? I think it's in memory or no application. Yeah. So right. So you've all heard of cookies, right? Cookies, like when you're browsing the web and it like stores data and like determines to let you know about like targeted ads and stuff like that. They hear that you went to a place and they're going to advertise an ad for you. Well, this kind of stuff is stored. It can be stored a couple different places. It can be stored, and we actually see here different storage options. And one of them is local storage. We can actually bust into this and see, look, we're actually holding on to this token here. Fortunately, the rest of it is being censored, so we can't see, our sensitive information is not being linked. But local storage persists through a singular browsing session. And then when you close Chrome or go to somewhere else, it will not be there anymore. And so it's basically like an object that you have access to just within that page. We're able to store stuff in just your normal key value pair setup. So we're actually using local storage to store our token here. The JOT token, that is. Oh, I said JOT token. Our JOT is being stored here. Let's see. We've got we're setting which of the divs, right? All these different divs here, right? All these are different divs that are actually popping up, right? When we like edit and add a job and all this stuff. These are different divs that are popping up. And which div is visible, they're all hidden by default. And just we're setting one to be visible. There he goes. With this set div function here. And then we also boot things on DOM content loaded, which is a pretty common event to listen for, because it's when the DOM content loads. And that's just when all the content on the page loads, we just run all of our stuff, right? All of our handle functions for all the different CRUD operations and all that. As soon as everything loads, we're just running that. And then yeah, that's basically what's happening in index.js. Let's see. Before I go, any questions about anything that's happening here in index.js? There's a lot. Cool. All
Can I
right.
say one thing?
Oh, sorry, go for it.
I think if I remember right, local storage actually, when you close your browser, it still should store your token in there, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's maybe session storage.
Session storage is the one that expires, yes.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and they have and that's a good point, that you have different storage options that you would want to use for different scenarios, where maybe, yeah, you do want to close the browser and open it back up and it persists. And that's when you would use local storage, but maybe you want it to completely go away when you close your browser in your session, right? Your browsing session. That's when you would use session storage. Thanks for that call out. Let's see. Anything else? Any questions about any of this before we move on? Because the rest of these are more targeted for like specific things, right? Let's handle logging in and registering, because that's pretty much where we would first want to go on the page. This is pretty straightforward, right? We're just going to we got two functions, right? To set the current div to be our register, or I mean, I'm sorry, our login or our register. That's pretty much all that's going on here. Right, we've got to show login, we've got to show register, and based on which one it is, that's what we want to do. Not sure. I mean, maybe if you haven't been in other classes or done like this sort of like intro to DOM manipulation type stuff in another class, then maybe all this like event listeners and the event object and all that stuff might be a little foreign to people. I don't want to like beat a dead horse on this kind of stuff. Is this stuff familiar to people? Stuff like e.target, add event listener, all this kind of stuff. Are people familiar with this, or no? This would be helpful to go over again. Right. Yeah. Okay. Sure. We can. No problem. So yeah, what we got here is some pretty basic, simple DOM manipulation stuff. Right. So first here we've got we're grabbing certain HTML elements and we're setting them to variables so that we can then work with them inside of JavaScript. Right. A common one is get element by ID. Right. So we just all of these HTML elements have IDs. Right. Our login or log on rather, log on div has a ID of log on. Our register has an ID of register, and we can grab these and then do stuff on them. For example, we have our login register div, and we can do what's called adding an event listener, right? There are many, 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 many events that can occur on a web page, right? You can click something, you could scroll. Every single key on your keyboard has a specific it has like you can key press when you press down on your keyboard, when you press up, when you release. These are all different events that you can listen for, right? You can say, hey, this specific HTML element, I want you to wait for a specific event to occur, and when that occurs, I want you to do something, right? So the obviously a very common one is clicking. You click on things very often on a web page. And so we're adding the click event listener. So we're saying, hey, when you click on the login register div, I want some stuff to happen. First off, if our input is enabled, right? And uh, and at the same time, the e.target.node name is button. So that means the E here is short for event. If the target of this event, the clicking event, is a button, well, if it's login, right, which means if it's this here, right? Our HTML element that is the logon. If it's that, then show login. I hate that they do log on and log in here. That's a little bit disorienting. But if it's instead, if what we're clicking is in fact the register, then we should show the register div. That's all that's really happening. We're just waiting for a click, depending on what is being clicked, and this is how we target that in JavaScript. Is we use the e.target. And we were saying, depending on what it is, we want to run a specific function to show the appropriate div. All right. Then let's move on to register. This one again, not too crazy. It's just handling the form for registering, right? So before, when we didn't have a front end, if we wanted to register, right, we would have to use Postman, right? We need to use it, go to a new HTTP request, and we would need to post to, hey, now we need to post to our auth route, to our auth/register route, right? And we would need to do a body, need to, right? You remember all this stuff. I've done this and messed it up several times now, right? Where you would set like a name and all that, right? You've seen John do this, right? He sets his name to John, or he sets it to like some woman's name. And then email all this, right? We did this in previous weeks. Now we're doing this exact same thing, but we're using a form on the front end to do the same thing, right? So again, this is pretty much the same thing, right? If it's a button, if it's the register button, we're gonna check to see if our passwords are matching, right? Most places will have you confirm that you want to do that password, that there's not a typo, so you type the password twice. And if that works, then we're going to go ahead and write same URL here, right? The API v1 auth register. We're going to post just like we were doing before. And we're going to include our name, email, and password. Same thing that we're doing in Postman, but we're just taking the contents of a form and using that to create a to create a new user instead of just doing it just raw in Postman. And it says registration successful, all this stuff. It says welcome, it saves your token, right? All that kind of stuff. And then just also handling if we actually just want to cancel. So nothing, and then we're just error handling for the most part other than that. So yeah, this is mostly just handling, exporting all the logic that we would have to do inside of Postman into a form. And that's a pretty heavy portion of the internet in general, is just handling the information inside of a form. All right, jobs. Jobs is a big one. Jobs is a fun one where a lot of stuff happens. Right, we've got this big handle jobs. That's, of course, handling all the different CRUD operations that relate to our jobs, right? So same thing as before. This is usual practice of like, you just go ahead and grab all of your elements that you're going to be working with from the get-go. We really love get element by ID over here. It's usually pretty common. Grab things. You can grab things by class, but usually you do it by ID. Same thing as before, we're adding a click event listener, right? So if we're clicking on the correct button, depending on which button we're clicking, we want to make sure that we then fire off the proper function, right? For the edit button, use the edit function. For the delete button, use the delete function. If it's the log off button, we log off. All that stuff. Show jobs. And again, most of these are actually just doing the same thing that we were doing with Postman, except now we're actually making it interactive on the front end, right? So we are all familiar with this API endpoint by this point, right? API v1 jobs. When you get all your jobs, it's going to show you all the jobs, right? Let's just do that again, right? Let's make a new HTTP request. Let's go to all of our jobs, right? Localhost 3000 jobs. I think I'm still logged in on the right person here. Oh, okay. So I messed up my authentication. Great. Let's log in then. Oh gosh, and now I need to remember which user I was logged in as. I think it was supposed to be JSON. Let me see if I can remember offhand. I think it was test user. I don't remember. It's no point doing that. But yeah, this is just the get all, right? That we've done a bunch of times before, right? We're just getting all of our jobs, and we're taking all those jobs, and we're just going to we set that as this data here, right? We're going to respond to our fetching of all jobs. We're going to store that in a variable, and then we've got this let children equal jobs table header here. And so if we're getting back a good response and we actually have some jobs, then we're going to take that jobs table header and we're going to use what, remember here, this is the spread operator. We're going to spread all of the response from our get of our API. And then we're just going to periodically one by one, see, we got a for loop here. So we're looping over all of the jobs that we get back, and we're creating its own little entry. I only have one right here, but if we were to add another one, we can see that. Let's see, Facebook, why not? Facebook, I'm the CEO of Facebook now. Congratulations to me. Right, now we have another one. And so for each of these jobs, it's going to create its own little entry in here where we've got, we're filling in the value for the company, the value for the position, the value for status, and make sure each one has its own edit and delete button. We can see that here, right? So row entry, we're creating a table row. That's what the TR is. We're creating its own little edit and delete button. And then we're creating our own little data nodes here, right? The company, the status, the position, all that. And then we're enabling input for it. And then we're setting our div, the visible div, to be our jobs div, the div where all the jobs are living. And then, of course, yeah, probably not best practice to have put my delete job function here. Probably would have been better to put it in its own function, in its own file, rather, and then export it. But I just put it here just because it was easier. Any questions about anything that happened and is happening here in the jobs? It's mostly the getting of all jobs and just a sort of central repository for handling which of our functions, which of our CRUD operations are happening on jobs. But any questions about any of this? How it's working, what's happening? Okay, no problem. Let's see here. And then there's one more, right? Yeah, add edit. That's what we haven't done yet. And this one is similar to login register in that it's pretty much just, or it's similar to login rather, in that it's just handling the form for editing, right? So if there's no ID, right, then we're going to post to jobs. And if there is an ID, we're going to change the current job we're working with to, we're going to patch it to have different information, right? So again, hopefully this is starting to get old at this point, right? Grabbing all of our elements at the beginning. We're adding a click event listener to the appropriate div. If we're clicking on the correct button, go ahead and post to jobs. But if we're updating, then we're going to edit that job. Then make sure everything's all good with a try catch, right? We got our bearer token for authorization purposes because we're only able to view our jobs, right? Nobody else's. We've got our body for all of our different values. If everything's all good, update it. If something went weird for some reason, then we're going to create a new job with that information. And if something goes really wrong, then we'll just catch the error here. And if we click the cancel button, then we just say, never mind, and go back to showing all of our jobs. This is an interesting way to, I mean, it's probably the most straightforward way to do it without a front-end framework, but this kind of stuff like show jobs instead would probably, if we were doing something like React, we would probably just render a different component. But that's of course not in the scope of this, not the scope of this course. It will be in the future, which actually will be my next point after we finish this, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. And then just the show add edit, right? You can probably guess by this and the cadence so far, right? So we're going to set the div to be, this is going to be handling setting the div, the visible div to be the appropriate one, which is for adding and editing. That's pretty much all this is, right? We're getting a specific job. We're editing the job. Yeah, this is mostly for like handling, if it says like if it's been updated since its last display or something. Yeah. So broad overview, only one panel is visible at a time, right? You've got this like set div functions choosing which one is visible. We've got like our login register. We've got jobs. We've got add edit. We're holding on to a token, a jot, right? Not jot token, because that's the T in jot, a token or a jot. All job calls to edit or whatever are all including that auth token. Let's see what else is happening. How do you hide both the login and the register forms when you first load the app? That should actually be everything's hidden by default when you open the page. All right, I'm gonna log off, which is probably gonna make me very sad because I'm probably not gonna remember my user. But if we log off, right, this should be just what shows up at the get-go, right? Whenever you're logged off and nothing's here, it should show this: log on and register. But you want both to be visible. But if you didn't want this for some reason, then you would just you would work with your set div to set it to be for all to be hidden from the get-go. That would be inside it. You would work with the index.js because that's where the set div is living, the set div function. But you want log on and register, right? Because if you have an account, you want to log in, and if you don't have an account, then you want to register your account so you can then log on. So you said that's what I meant. Which I'm sorry, I was just sort of just talking, having just log on and register. This should, yeah, this is the default state of the app. If I like haven't done anything yet. If it's not, so you're asking me that, which makes me think that that's not what's happening for you. What is happening for you? Is it just nothingness, or what's going on? Because if it's nothing, my guess would be that you had a similar issue to what I had, which is what I was talking about. Um, remove the display none because I wasn't sure what the page was blank. Oh yeah, you want the display none to be there, right? Because you're hiding all of them from the, and then you're just showing the appropriate one when you click the appropriate button to make it appear, right? If there's oh yeah, you put it back. That's good. Yeah. If nothing's showing up, I would guess that the reason is, and I actually had this issue too. I was talking about it when the class first started, was that I do feel that the code blocks that we were given could have been a little bit more descriptive of where you're supposed to be changing the code and like copy pasting the new code. So my guess would be that you copied like a new updated piece of the code that you're supposed to put into one of the files and you put it into the incorrect place would be my guess. Because I actually did that earlier. And I got a blank page and I was like, what is going on? So I would just go back. They do somewhat clarify. Let's see. I have it here. Let's see. Right. So for example, here I have it. Like this one, for example, right? In jobs, like this is supposed to now be the what you're supposed to edit. This else if already exists, you're not supposed to be adding this else if. Just the contents of what happens in this else if is supposed to be what's changed, but they don't really do the hottest job of saying that's what's happening. Or for example, this show jobs function, when you have before this code block here, show jobs is just this, I think it's like a one line where it says set div to be the correct div, and all this stuff is not happening, right? So what you're supposed to be doing is updating the show jobs function to have all of this content, right? And it would have been as easy as say, hey, update the show jobs function with this code, instead of just, hey, it should look like this. So I think that that could have been done a little bit better. I just didn't even like, I just copied the whole thing, just pasted it in. But you're not always going to be replacing the entire file. You're just going to be replacing some pieces of the file. And I think that was probably where you ran into a snag. So I would go back and check for, yeah, either if that function that we're changing already exists, or if, yeah, like down here, if that like this if statement already exists, that kind of thing, because that is probably where it's going wrong. Same thing here, this event listener, this is actually what I did originally, was that the add edit, I just copied it, and so my add edit only adds an event listener. It didn't actually didn't actually do anything else. So that would be my guess. I would comb through it and see which part of it. I started over from the beginning. I like just copied all the base code again, and then just did it one by one to figure it out, which one I did wrong. That's probably all it is. It's just a copy paste issue. No problem. Okay, awesome. Good question though. Good question. So we have about 20 minutes left. So with that time, I had two things that I wanted to do, because this was pretty much everything, right? A or one is I wanted to check, get a feel for next week, right? Because next week we're doing some server-side rendering with EJS. Everybody hates EJS around here, right, Mark? EJS is the worst.
Honestly, I'm looking at next week's. I've never used EJS, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like it may be the worst looking at it.
it's it works. and it's tried and true. But it is, what's a kind word to say what I'm trying to say? Ugly. There we go. It's ugly. So we are using EJS, but despite my own personal biases, and I'll also say Gina also hates EJS, just saying, it is your assignment. And it is a thing that people do use. I do know a human being who uses EJS in her job as a software engineer. So it is a thing that people do in real life. But I do know that A, people hate it and it looks gross, and B, that this node course that we're currently all in right now is actually going to soon be updated, where we're going to phase out EJS completely and use nice, awesome React. So my question to everybody here is, you do have to do the EJS, right? There's no getting around that. I asked Gina, but next week I could either show you how to do and explain the EJS code, or what I could do is I could take, you can use React, no problem. You just have to do it for this assignment. What I'm saying is that I can convert the EJS that we're going to be doing in the homework and show you how you would implement the same thing with React instead of EJS, right? So this would not be helpful for you at all in your homework, but it would be cool to show you how you would do it in React. So I wanted to see what people would feel like. Would you want me to show you how the homework is actually done? Or would you want to see the React version of the homework, which again, not helpful, not what you're supposed to do, not what you should be submitting. But if you're curious and want to see that instead of, because there's no way we can do both in time. So just, do you want to see React, or do you want to see the actual homework using EJS next week? So Brittany's on React. Other people? We got a +1 on that, actually. Cool. I saw the +1. I thought that was like an actual, not like an emoji. I thought that was like I had like a new option to like click. I was gonna press the plus and like something was gonna happen, like some new Zoom feature. Okay, so it seems like people want to see EJS. Okay, so next week when we get in, you need to do the homework and submit it. Of course, obviously you probably have the homework done by the time you get into this class anyway, because it's due the day after this class happens. But and I will take the homework and I will convert the EJS into React, and so we can see it that way. So that's what I'll do. That seems to be the popular vote. In fact, no one. I feel bad because now I feel like I've biased you guys against EJS too, just by saying that both I and the instructional lead don't like it. But in reality, it is probably a more marketable skill than EJS. Like I said, I do know a singular human who does use EJS, so that might be you in the future. I'm sorry if that is you. But I would say that React is a lot more used these days. The only people who are probably using EJS have like legacy code that they, for some reason, didn't want to convert over to a more modern front-end framework. But it does work. Everything, that's not true. And when it comes to putting JavaScript and HTML in the same file and running them at the same time, EJS and React do the same thing. It's just that React does it without looking hideous.
Yeah, I'm used to teaching React.
Yeah. We're all React fans around here. I love React. The first time I saw React, I was in love. Actually, just when I learned React, it was just at the end of class-based React, and we're moving into functional React. And I was like, whoo, wee. It was nice. It was a good time. It was a good time. And that's one of those times where I just know that I'm it's an irredeemable nerd. Just, you shouldn't have that kind of reaction to looking at code. You're like, oh yeah. The first time I saw jQuery, whoo, oh my God, I was sweating a little. Anyway, that's enough about that. But yeah, so yeah. So but also need the assignment. Yeah. So we can maybe see about time. Like I can show you, because maybe the React would go quicker, right? Because it is really just like in EJS, right? EJS is short for embedded JavaScript. So you're taking HTML files, or like any old HTML file, like this one that we copy pasted. You use these really weird magic things. We called them hats at General Assembly. And you have different hats based on what kind of JavaScript you're using, and you can just put JavaScript in your HTML, and there's a lot of benefits to that, obviously, right? Like you could use a for loop to make, instead of like doing stuff like this, maybe all these different options, you could have a for loop and then loop over them and make them that way. And you could bring in data from your backend and then display that here, all in just the HTML, right? You can make a call to the backend and display the results from the backend in one file. Really, really simple and clean. But React does that without the need of hats. I got lost with what I was going to say. So it might go really quickly. So we might be able to do React and go over the assignment in EJS. But it seems like the priority people are wanting is to see the React version. But if we have time next week, I will definitely go over, or maybe I'll give the last 15 minutes, even if we're still working on React and I'm just yapping about how great React is. Maybe I'll take some time to go over any questions or do a summary of the homework in EJS. Does that sound good, Lima? Does that work? Okay, we'll do that then. We'll make React a priority. We also, I would feel bad if people wanted to see the homework and have me explain the actual thing you're submitting without not have me not actually handle that, if that's something people want to see, of course. Like the whole point of this is that I show you what you want to see, right? I'm not just up here just sort of spouting whatever, unless it involves React or hating on EJS. So that was thing number one that I wanted to talk about. And thing number two is just since we're getting near the end, is projects, right? So you have the official all clear to start thinking about and working on your projects. And I've mentioned this in previous weeks, of course, as well. If you ever want to talk about your project with me or anybody else, you definitely should, because it's really, really important to have as much planned out before ever putting your hands on the keyboard, to have as much planned out as you can possibly do so that you're not lost at sea once you're actually coding. You should basically be ready, like it should already step one, step two, step three, exactly what everything is going to look like, what everything's going to do, what your models are going to look like, all that kind of stuff should be ready to go from the get-go. At General Assembly, which I always reference that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like, oh, I worked over there. There were a couple of things we would not let you even start working on your project without, and you don't have to do these, but I recommend doing them because you will never be like, dang, I really spent way too much time planning for my project. You'll never say that. What we would always have everyone do is you would submit a couple things. You would submit what's called an ERD, an entity relationship diagram, which is just a basic visual summary of which models you're going to be creating and how they're going to be related to one another, right? Say if you're making a simple to-do app, for example, you're going to have a model of to-dos, of course. Well, that's actually that'd probably be like the only model. Actually, I have a student who's making a to-do list, but it's going to be more complex than that. He's hoping that it's going to be for multiple families, it's going to be like a family-centered thing, where each family could have their own to-do list. So you would have a to-do model, and you would have maybe like a family model. Then you would have a user model, right? So the family model and the user model would be related because the members of the family would be instances of the user model, and then each user would be have to-do lists that they were assigned to. There would also probably be a model list like the to-do list, right, which contains a list of instances of the to-do model, all that kind of thing. And you would have all that planned out before you ever coded, right? You would know exactly what your models would do, exactly what properties they would have, and exactly which relationships they would have with each other, right? So that would be a basic thing. One thing to consider that is also very important, and you'll hear a lot when you actually get into the workforce, is well, it depends on where you work, especially if you're working at a place with a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of like organization, you'll definitely be talking a lot about what are called user stories, right? So a user story is it's a like a basic description of if you are a user of your application, what are you hoping occurs when you're using this app, right? A simple example would be, say, before Netflix existed, right? And you were a user of online video streaming platforms, and you wanted something like Netflix to exist. What would you want to happen when you opened this new app that they called Netflix, right? What would you hope to happen? And think about that, right? Like, what would I want to happen when Netflix opens up on my computer, right? I would want to see movies, obviously, but how would I want to see those movies? Think about how Netflix does it. They sort it by like you have like your stuff that you've recently watched. They have stuff that they recommend to you based on what you've watched previously. They have different broad categories like action, thriller, uh, but they had to think about originally like how like what would people want when they open my app, right? And so whatever kind of app you're creating, I would think about it like, say, like you are your intended user, and I want something out of this app. I want it to do certain things for me, right? Like if I had to plan the perfect app in my head that did everything I wanted out of this app, what would it do and how would it do it? And that can help you craft, well, that's how that should work, right? With this family to do list, maybe you should think they'd be thinking like, how would I want to set this? Like when I'm viewing the front page, how does the to-dos show up? Can I look at other families' to-do lists to see if they're doing the same to-dos as I am, or do I not want to see what other families are working on, right? Is that too much invasion of privacy? So I would just give a little bit of time to consider if you were to make this app for someone who's just your average user, what would that be like? And then the final one that we would have you submit is what's called a wireframe, which is just a super, super low fidelity, just visualization of what the app is going to look like on the screen, the front end, right? And you probably are planning that kind of thing out in your head anyway, but just laying it out, right? Just actually taking some time to draw it out, because you might consider new things once you're actually drawing it. You're like, huh, well, where would I put that? Where would that make the most sense? And where should these various buttons go? If I have a nav bar, right, like a navigation bar at the top, what buttons should be up there? Um, Maybe I want the nav bar on the side. Maybe I like that sort of cool, modern looking side nav bar thing going on. Uh, so yeah, ERD, wireframes, user story. We would not let you code anything without those, right? So, and that's the basic idea of your app, what it's going to look like, what the code is going to be, and what it's going to do. We would require all those things. And so if you are like still thinking about your project, I would take a little bit of time to work on those kinds of things. And if you want some more in-depth explanation about some of them, or you want to talk them out with me, feel free to schedule a meeting with me on my Calendly, and we can totally go through some of that, because it is really, really important. And I guarantee you, you will not regret a single second that you spend planning out your app before you actually do it. I guarantee it, guarantee it. Okay, with all that being said, we've got a couple minutes left, but I didn't imagine I would use all the time. I don't want to just yeah, fill up a bunch of basic ass time with stuff that like is not going to be useful. So yeah, I'll of course check to see if there's anything that anyone wants to hear about, or any questions anybody had about anything that I said, both about projects or React or the code here that I've been like just fiddling with while I'm talking. Uh, any of that. Any questions or comments about anything? Okie dokie. Well, of course, the video will always be there. Uh, And if you ever, same as every week, if you want to get access to the YouTube playlist that I have of all of these lessons, feel free to hit me up on Slack, and I'll send it to you. I'll probably post it in the main once the course is over, because I feel a little bit weird about like posting my own YouTube just sort of as a random comment in the Slack thread. But yeah, so if you ever want any of that, especially maybe today's stuff where I laid out the project planning things, you can always go on there and I'll explain them to you as many times as you want. Cool. Great stuff. I didn't mess up any code this week. I was joking about it when Dimitro came in. I feel like every time he's here, my code messes up. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But yeah, thanks for kind of coming, everybody. And next week you can expect some React. Woo!
Gabe, I have a question when everyone's done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Everybody, get out.
No. Take your time.
No, leave. Get out of here. Can't you see we don't want you anymore? But seriously, have a good night, everybody.
Is there somewhere like I can go that tells me like what I need to install, like MongoDB and everything, like for like this course?
I'm actually maybe there's like I think they had like a introductory like slideshow, which I think is somewhere in the, are you in the like the Kangaroo Mentors and Kangaroo Announcements Slack
I
channel?
think. Let's see. Yeah, I'm in Kangaroo announcements.
What about Kangaroo Mentors? Actually, it should be Kangaroo Announcements, maybe.
I'm in mentors too, so let's see.
Yeah, there's this I think it's called a canvas, right? Where yeah, I can actually screen share it.
I'm looking. Yeah, I know. I'm looking in
Yeah,
Slack.
it should be on one of these, I think. But the only thing that I think you really need, and also like you're mostly following along with a lot of pre-generated code. So if you just npm install, like it at least installs like npm dependencies. And other than that, yeah,
Will
I
it
guess
install Mongo? I forgot. I haven't used Mongo for like a year or two.
that's fair. I think you can just do it straight from I already had it installed, so I don't remember, but I think you let's see if you can npm it. Otherwise,
Because
I think
yeah, for full stack we use Postgres.
yeah, totally. I mean, I love me some Postgres. Um, but yeah, I think because we're also we're like postmanning most of our stuff. We're not even like we're just like using Postman for like all CRUD, and then we're just using the MongoDB like Atlas. That's just
Okay,
like
yeah, I've
that's
used it before, but I like on another computer. I forget how I installed it like years ago.
that's fair. Yeah. Let's see if they have like an install fest style thing here in the slide deck. Zoom link, class content, submission form. Uh, I could have sworn it was here. Could have sworn. I mean, I went to it. So it's got a orientation slide deck. Here we go. It's in Kangaroo Mentors. Let's see. Agenda. This is more like roles and responsibilities and stuff.
Yeah, I think I saw a video of this slideshow. I
Maybe.
can figure it out. I was just wondering.
Yeah. I don't
There was
recall
like a
offhand.
machine setup for like people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like pretty. I think. Hang on, because I think actually, let me go back to like this kind of stuff here. Oh no, not this stuff. And models. Right, like so you're definitely installing Mongoose, and for MongoDB, I think is probably from their website.
Okay, yeah, I can just download it.
Yeah, and yeah, you like the Mongoose version. Yeah, you just npmi that. It's already stored in the package JSON.
Okay, cool.
Yep, pretty straightforward.
Okay,
Cool.
awesome. I
Yep.
could
Well,
probably just it looks like I could probably just use brew to install it.
awesome. Yeah. I haven't worried about personally like installing anything like new like that. I think I updated my node. But other than that, I haven't really worried about. I'm just
So where did you get this code from though? Like where is this code from also?
Oh, yeah. So each week, so you actually fork this entire thing when you start the course, this Node Express course, and all this is already
Oh.
made. Like all
So
of
so
it,
so wait, where did you fork this from then? Maybe that's where I'm like, because I was looking, maybe
yeah,
is
it's a little
there
hard to find. It's not like linked in every lesson, which is
right? That's why
super
like
rare.
I was looking like I saw like a GitHub thing of like just like lessons, but no like repo.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do. I'll actually just take a link to my fork of it, and I'll just DM it to you.
Okay, that'll work.
Where is it? Node Express course. I just forked mine from a student because I was like,
Oh,
where
okay.
is it? I just found his stuff because he submitted an assignment, and I was like, I'm just gonna grab it here. I'm
That
gonna
makes sense. Yeah.
send you like the original one. Yeah, I'll just send this.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and everything has a like a starter and a final. And usually I'll
Got it.
just look
Yeah.
at the final, look at the differences, and then just be like, here's what the code was.
Got it. Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, how do I get like this
Yeah,
information
yeah,
to like
that
go
part's
over?
not super clear either. Oh, this is all still being
Okay.
recorded. This is gonna be extra time.
Cool.
It's gonna take longer for my recording to go off, and I'm gonna have to trim it now. It's fine.
Oh, sorry.
I